So I had my students in every single facility that we found, I had them figure out what the cost of that facility could be if it was at 100% full. Just guesstimating, this facility could be worth this much money just by looking at it, knowing the acreage, knowing the doors, knowing the size of the buildings. This is how much you could possibly make, right? And we would look at that, and then we would compare it to the purchase price of the facility, like or like maybe even, what the land costs versus building it or something like that, and you can, so there's really, just by looking and understanding these kinds of concepts, you can really start educating yourself and learning how to look at the facilities and come up with the value of those facilities. So my homework to you, I dare you to get the cap rate calculator on your phone, get Landglide on your phone, Google Maps and Google Photos. Those are the four apps that you need, and go out driving for storage, looking for storage. Like I said, look up storage near me on Google Maps, driving around, right? Looking at the storage facilities, not just finding them, but actually looking at them, and practice filling out your cap rate calculator and trying to actually figure out what the value of that could be based on the amount of, the amount of land that you find in land trust, right? And Landglide, and then also counting the doors and trying to figure out the square footage, right? So for instance, like we found one that was like, 76 units, and they were all 10 by 10s, right? So 76 10 by 10s, okay? So now we know there's 76 10 by 10s. Let's just guesstimate, right? How are we gonna figure out what their value is gonna be? You figure out the value by looking around on Google Maps. All you need is your phone. That's it. And being like, all right, what's a typical, storage facility in this, in the area go for? And then you can just Google, storage near me, and see if there's any other storage facilities that have websites around you. Some are going to have websites, some are not. You pull it up and you look to see what they're charging for a 10 by 10, and maybe like look at one or two different, or three different, websites or something. And then you could say like, oh, this one's charging 55, this one's 65, and this is 60. Okay, so like, let's just use 60 as our number. So now we know 76 10 by 10 units at $60, right? So 76 times 10 by 10, and you calculate that. And that's the income that, if it was 100% full, that's the income that you'd be making. All right. The income that you're making, guess what? The expenses are 30% of that. So then you you put that input in, right? You put that into your calculator. Okay, so you have gross rental income is like whatever it is, 76 times 60. It was like $4,500. 4,500 times 12 is like what, 40 grand, 50 grand? I'm not sure, right? Whatever number that is, 50 grand. And so you put that into your cap rate calculator. And then you say, okay, and this, I always run my numbers at 8% vacancy. If it's full, if it's full, I still run it at 8% because people are coming and going and stuff. So I run my numbers at 8%. But a lot of times they'll be full. You could just run it at 100%, but then you just know that you're going to lose some money because that vacancy is not there. So, and then the operating expenses are 30% of the gross income. All right. So that's three of the things just by looking at the facility. That's three of the inputs on your cap rate calculator. The fourth one is the purchase price. We don't know what the purchase price is going to be, but what if it was at a cap rate that is a good cap rate within your area, right? You would use that you would just basically run numbers to get the cap rate on the calculator to that number. So if you're in a primary market and everything's selling at a 5 cap or a 6 cap, then you would use that, right? If you're in a secondary market and everything's selling at a 7 or an 8 cap, you would use that. And in a tertiary market, if everything's selling at a 9 or a 10 cap, use that. Most of the time, for me personally, I'm just sticking to an ACAP. And the reason why I stick to an ACAP when I run my numbers is because I know that an appraiser in a secondary and tertiary markets in our area is going to be appraising at an ACAP. Right. This is kind of what they do. They just use that number, right? Most appraisals in our area are being run at an ACAP for all the stuff that I'm looking at. So I run my numbers based on an ACAP, right? So 70, let's just say, 76 units at $60 each, right? Is times 60. I'm sorry, 76 times 60 is 4560 times 12. So 54,720 is what it would be if it was full, right? So I would go in and I would put 54,720 into the income. 54,720. I'd leave 8%. I'd do 30% of 54,720. Right. So I'd go back to my calculator. I'm just calculating it up is what I'm doing. And then I do 54,720 times 0.3, 16,000, right? So I would do 16,000 in here. I have 15,000. Let's do 16,000. And then the purchase price, I want to get it at an ACAP, right? So that's all I'm doing. So let's just say I run it at $350,000. So that's a 9.8. That's a 9.8% cap rate at those numbers. I'm like, okay, well, I don't think I'm going to get it at that, but I would love to get it at see, I could sell my facilities at an ACAP, right? So I'll say, okay, let me try to get it to an ACAP. Is that $450,000? Let me work. That's a 7.6 cap, right? So I know it's going to be between 350 and 450 now. Okay, so now I'm going to just switch it over to 400 and be like, okay, it's an 8.5. So now it's like, a little bit over 400. So if I can get this property based on it being 100% full, right? It's worth between $400,000 and $450,000. Now, we don't know if that property is vacant or not. We only know what the opportunity is, right? That's all we know. So now I know, and I'm driving around, and then when I talk to the owner and they say they want to sell it for $750, or what, $750,000, and it's only worth $450,000, I know this is just not going to. I'll just tell them. And I've gotten so good now, right, that I'm driving for storage. I'm calling storage facilities up right in front of the storage facility, talking to the owners right then and there, just eyeballing the facilities and trying to get a number that I think would be the best value for that facility if it was full. And then I'm talking to the owner and asking them what their price is. So that, and then when they say something that's ridiculous, let's say, look, I'm looking at your facility right now, unless you tell me something different. I see 76 10 by 10 units, and the competition here is about $60, per unit. So that's coming out to 50 grand a year. Are you making way more than 50 grand? Because my lender's not going to lend to me unless you can prove that you're making that much income. Okay, so can you kind of run that by me and tell me what you're thinking or how this works here? So then I start sounding kind of, like I know what I'm talking about a little bit, on my deals. That's how it works. All right, that's how it works when I'm driving for storage, and that's basically how I get my deals under contract.